So, I'm normal about 911. Hello, everybody. Welcome to my first YouTube video. I'm recording this on my phone, so if the audio sounds bad, it's because I'm recording this on my phone. I wanted to do a recap series of 911 for my friends so they can truly understand how insane the show makes me, as if these pictures on the wall aren't evidence enough of that. I also wanted to do this for any new people watching the show and anyone who wants a recap on the show but doesn't want to go through the process of watching all 7 seasons, but I will just say you should watch all 7 seasons because it is great television. My goal was to recap all of this before season 8 came out, but considering that it's mid-July right now, as the time I'm filming this, clearly I will not reach that goal. So we'll see how long this takes me. I also wanted to do it in this style of like Mike's Mike videos because I love watching people point to things that I don't know anything about. So hopefully you'll find entertainment in this as well. So what is 911? You might be asking yourself. Well, let me tell you, okay? 911, as I like to call it, and many other people do as well, is the silly gay firefighter show. But if we're being serious here, it's more of a procedural dramedy kind of thing. It follows a fire station, 911 dispatchers, and cops in LA. Luckily, it focuses more on the firefighters than anything else. It focuses on all of their drama and some of their trauma because God forbid we do good representation in the show. One of the actors, this guy right here, he compared the show like and the characters to like superheroes and Looney Tunes characters because literally I think like most of the people on here should be dead, but they bounce back from things relatively okay and don't ruminate on the fact that they died. Like, he should be dead, he should be dead, he should be dead, she should be dead, I'm pretty sure. She should probably also be dead, but listen, it's a silly little TV show, so they don't die. I just wanted to get that out of the way to say, yes, this show is unrealistic. And do I eat it up every time? Yes. I also want to mention that when I like go through the episodes that I will be going a little out of order in the scenes just so it makes more sense and it's more clear because the show likes to like flip-flop back and forth a lot. I'll try to avoid as much confusion as possible. I also won't really be talking about the calls that they go on either unless they're integral to the plot or I think they're funny because sometimes they're really funny and I just need to let you know about the stuff that happens in the show. But I'm also leaving them out so that you can experience something new in the show as well because you should watch the show, please. It's so funny. It's so good. And then also, before we get started, I want to give 2 disclaimers. In the midst of editing this video, I realized my first disclaimer wasn't very good, so I'm gonna re-record that right now. So this season handles topics of suicide and drug and alcohol addiction. Though they won't be discussed in extreme detail, these topics are important when discussing the plot of the show. So if you're sensitive to these topics, I'm afraid this video might not be for you. The second disclaimer is for the fandom, because after season 7 kind of fell off the deep end, so let me just say this real quick. For current 911 fans watching this, hey, how y'all doing? Please, for the love of God, be normal. I'm gonna be opinionated in this video and the subsequent videos I make after this. I have my opinion, you have yours. This fandom is so toxic for no reason because people don't understand. People don't think the same thing. If you think you have the moral high ground on an opinion, I promise you that you don't. Please log off, shut your computer, turn off your phone, go outside and touch grass. This show has never been that serious. Its target demographic is like 40 to 60-year-old women. This show probably isn't meant for you, and that's okay. So take a breather, go outside. It's not that serious. It's never been that serious. But anyways, on that note, I want to talk about how I got into the show because it's my video and I can do what I want. So in my script, I wrote this really long thing about how I got into the show. So I'll give you the abridged version because I'm sure no one wants to hear that, but I want to share it. In 2021, I finished up watching Law & Order SVU, and I was like, okay, I need to find a new show to watch. In my list, I had 911 Lone Star, because I recognized Rob Lowe, and I was like, oh, I know that guy. I think I like him. I go into Lone Star and find that there's a crossover episode with the original, so I was like, I think I should watch the original first, so I know these characters and can understand the crossover. If that doesn't describe who I am as a person, I don't know what does. Before I started the show, I was like, I wonder if there's any queer ships in the show because I just love engaging with that because do they ever go canon? No. But is it fun to think they will? Yes. So I did what any normal person does. I went on to AO3 and I found a lot of flash fics between you know who, and if you don't, that's okay, we'll get to it in season 2. So did I start watching the show because of Buddy? Maybe. Actually, the answer is yes, I did. But listen, I stuck around for all the other characters because the show is really good regardless of a ship that may or may not become canon. And speaking of the characters, characters. Let's finally get into what you came here for. First, we have Athena Grant, played by Angela Bassett. At the beginning of the show, she's married to her husband, Michael, and then they have 2 kids together, May and Harry. Athena is the only main character who's a cop. We don't like that she's a cop, but regardless, she's a field sergeant for the LAFD, so she kind of goes wherever she's needed, doesn't have a partner or anything. Practically everything that she does in this show is unethical, but we won't get to that quite yet, but we will very shortly. Even though I hate most of the things that Athena does, I still like Athena, and Angela Bassett frequently reminds us that she is Angela Bassett. Next up, we have Robert Bobby Nash, frequently referred to as Bobby, obviously, and then also as Cap or Captain, because as you could probably guess, he is the captain of the 118, which is the firehouse that the show focuses on. He's been a captain at the 118 for about 5 years. He came from St. Paul, Minnesota. He's Catholic. He also has no wife or kids, and we will get into why later in the video. Next, we have my least favorite character in the show. Normally, I dislike characters and I can tolerate them a certain amount, but no, I hate this character because of her introduction. Through my rewatch, I kind of started liking her a little more. I could tolerate her more, but I still do not like her at all. And that is Abby Clark, played by Connie Britton. She's a 911 dispatcher. She's also pretty newly single after getting out of a serious relationship. She also takes care of her mom, who has Alzheimer's. Next up, to juxtapose that with my favorite character in the show, we have Howard Chimney Hahn. Throughout this video, I'll probably be referring to him as Chimney or Chim because that's what everyone calls him. He's played by Kenny Choi. Chim is a firefighter and paramedic. He does the firefighter stuff, he does the paramedic stuff. He's an everyman. He's also really funny and I love him. He also has a girlfriend named Tatiana. Chim is really good friends with Henrietta Hen Wilson. She's also a firefighter paramedic. Hen has a wife named Karen, who is played by Tracy Toms. I feel like that's important to point out. Oh my gosh, I forgot to mention. Hen is played by Aisha Hines. They have a son together named Denny. Hen has an ex named Eva, who weasels her way back into Hen's life. Last but certainly not least, especially in the way that the show uses him, we have Evan Buck Buckley, who is played by Oliver Stark, who, fun fact, is British. Buck is a relatively new firefighter to the 118. He's also a self-diagnosed sex addict, so do with that what you will. He's not bisexual until season 7, so he's straight for the time being. And with that out of the way, we can finally get into the show. Episode 1 is, as you can probably guess, titled Pilot. It opens with the corniest voiceover I've ever heard in my life. It's literally the reason why I hate Abby. She opens with the voiceover and I hate it. But basically she's talking about when everyone has emergencies and they have to take care of their emergencies. In this case, she's referring to her mom. Me personally, I wouldn't refer to my mother who has a cognitive disability as an emergency, but call me woke. And then she talks about how you call her for the other type of emergency, which as you can guess is an actual emergency that you need 911 for. She also mentions how she's not like other 911 dispatchers who usually hang out when help arrives. No, she stays on that line. So we know that Abby is different and cool and empathetic. One of these calls is when the 118 is called to get a jumper down from a tower. Bobby, he's up there, and Bobby's like, I know how it feels, trust me. But ultimately, the woman jumps, and they lose her. After their shift, Bobby goes to his church, and he's reading from a little book. Keep the little book in mind, because it's important. He's reading these names from this book. And then he confesses to his new priest. He had a drug and alcohol problem, and he says that firefighters always find a way to cope with their job. For some people, it's alcohol, and for some people, it's sex. Hard cut to Buck using one of their fire trucks to hook up with a woman. That's super fun and super cool. And then a bit later, it cuts to Buck coming back with the fire truck, and Bobby gives him a stern talking to, you call me Pops, and I give you a hard time, but we're not a family. He ends his little spiel by threatening Buck with, losing his job. Now we go to one of the most iconic calls in the whole show, which is baby stuck in wall. The gist is that this baby got flushed down a toilet, and it got stuck in a pipe, so they have to get it out. Athena is also there too, because they're trying to figure out who flushed this baby down a toilet. That's a crime. It's the first time that she shows up for a call, and it's also the first time that we see her abusing her power. And it certainly is not the last. She's going down and knocking on doors to try and figure out who flushed their baby down the toilet, which is obviously normal. They're trying to figure out what it is. When she gets to this one guy's door, he closes it suspiciously fast on her once he realizes that it's a cop. She's like, oh, this must be it. She barges in, and luckily it is the right apartment, but also just because someone reacts negatively to a cop does not mean that they did anything wrong. At the end of this call, Athena tells Buck that if he screws up, it'll be his last, because once they found out who flushed the baby down the toilet, Buck did not want to provide medical assistance to her because he couldn't fathom how someone would want to flush their baby down the toilet. So Buck essentially refused to treat her, and everyone was like, you still have to treat her even though you don't agree with what she did. Later, we see Athena at home with Michael, and she's giving him the cold shoulder, and the kids pick up on this, and they're like, are you getting a divorce? Michael wants to tell the kids what's going on, and Athena's like, no, don't do it. And then Michael does it anyway, and he goes, I'm gay. May has the weirdest reaction. She's basically like, why can't you keep this a secret? I don't want other people finding out. This is your dad's moment, not yours. Michael rightfully tells her he has nothing to be ashamed of because he doesn't. And then Athena and Michael get into a fight where Athena is mad at Michael for lying to her, which, yeah, I get that. And then she also is like, and for humiliating me. Maybe let's not do that. Michael said that really the only reason why they got married was because Athena's biological clock was ticking. Yikes. And then they both wanted kids. But Athena was like, I didn't know you were gay though. Like, I wouldn't have done it if I knew you were gay. And then 911 does what 911 does best, which is take the drama from that scene and cut directly to a silly little call that the 118 goes on. And it's snake choking woman. Hannah's like, let's not kill the snake, and then Buck chops its head off with an axe. Then he proceeds to flirt with the snake girl, and then a little bit later, Bobby finds Buck on top of the girls' building together, doing, you can assume what they're doing. Bobby's like, okay,
you're done.
And then Buck is like, I think I'm a sex addict. A self-diagnosed sex addict. And also, this job is all I have. Like, please let me keep this job. Bobby's like, no, you're fired. They get back to the station, and Hen is kind of sympathetic to Buck leaving. Next is a break-in. Girl calls 911, and Abby takes it. And this girl doesn't know where she lives. So Athena's in the area, and she asks Athena, hey, can you put your sirens on so we can try and find out where this girl lives? Athena is like, are you stupid? We're gonna scare the intruders if we do that. So Athena calls Hen, because if they use a fire truck or an ambulance, it's gonna sound different. The 118 is actually on a call, so they can't do that. So Hen has a brilliant idea, and that idea is to get Mr. Self-Diagnosed himself to get one of the engines from the 118 and drive it in the area to find out where the girl lives. Eventually, though, the intruders find out that there are people onto them, so they run away. Buck stops them by spraying them down with a hose, so that's super cool. And all while this is happening, in the background, we get Abby going, Fireman Buckley, are you okay? Fireman Buckley, what's happening? Please shut up. You're so annoying. Stop. I get it, but also chill out. Things are happening. He's not gonna stop what he's doing and talk to you. Afterwards, when things settle down, Buck is on the phone. He's like, it's fine. Then calls Abby the real hero. Okay. Buck goes back to the 118 and he's talking to Bobby. So he pleads for his job back, and then Bobby gives him his job back. Yippee! After that call, Athena calls Michael and proposes them to eat dinner as a family. The episode ends with an Abby monologue. Yay! My favorite. Episode 2 is titled Let Go, so that's kind of the theme throughout the episode. We open up on a roller coaster emergency. The roller coaster is upside down. Someone got flung out of it. One guy is hanging on upside down, and Buck is up there trying to help him down. And the guy doesn't want to move, and Buck is like, why aren't you moving? Come on, we need to get you. And the guy just gives up and lets go. After they get back from this call, Buck is very obviously shaken up by this, because this is the first time that he's ever lost someone on the job like that. And everyone's like, it's part of the job, it'll pass, whatever. But Buck is obviously very affected by it. And then we cut to Abby's house where she's watching the news. It's Buck talking to a reporter about the incident. Buck is borderline traumatized. He's like, I don't know why he wouldn't grab a hold of me. Shortly after, an in-home care nurse comes to help with Abby's mom. It's Carla Price. I have mixed opinions about Carla. She's great, but also some of the things that she does I don't vibe with. But she's fine. Carla also compares Abby's situation to an emergency, which is great. Carla also encourages Abby to call Buck and ask him how he's doing after that call, which is great. But also, Abby doesn't have Buck's phone number. Buck does not know who Abby is. Abby knows who Buck is, what he looks like and everything. Buck does not. Abby gets the nerve to call Buck. 118 is out on a call, and Buck picks up. He picks up the call. Luckily, they're not doing anything important at this point. They've done what they needed to do, but they're still out, and Buck picks up the call. Crazy. Buck is like, how did you get this number? Because obviously, she's like, oh, it was on the report log for the break-in. Girl, what are we doing? Why are we trying to find out who this man is? Buck, because he's stupid. Buck, because he's stupid and horny. He's like, maybe maybe I could call you again sometime. What? She like borderline stalked you to find out your number. That's super weird. Anyways, Athena is about to leave for work when her daughter isn't going to go to school that day because she feels sick, and Athena's like, okay, whatever. Athena and Hen are at lunch. Hen is encouraging Athena to move on because she should. And then we get Buck attending the funeral of the man who let go, because that's the episode title. The guy's sister is like, he wanted to live and you failed him, which is a totally normal response for someone who was like grieving. And then the next time that Buck is at the firehouse, he was telling Bobby how he was going to join the Navy SEALs, but he couldn't shut off the emotion part of his brain like they wanted him to. So call Buck an empath, but Bobby tells Buck about the first time that he lost someone on the job. He also gives Buck the number of a trauma counselor so he could get through this and better deal with his feelings. And then Buck goes to the trauma counselor, and then this also mirrors with Athena and Michael's couples counseling, but for clarity's sake, I'll be talking about them separately. Buck is trying to express how he feels about losing someone to the counselor, and then I guess his dick aura is like plus 10,000 because the counselor gets up and sits next to him and is like comforting him, which is weird and unprofessional. And then surprise, surprise, guess what they did next? And then she gets immediate post-nut clarity, and it's like, girl, what were you doing? There's no way that this man's trauma made you go into heat. That's so crazy and unprofessional. What are you doing? Yes, he is a baby girl, but like, no. Anyways, the grant therapy session is less insane, and we get Athena saying how she doesn't want to be made a fool of because of the divorce, and how, oh, she just should have known that Michael was gay. Girl, there's a reason why you're not a detective. Michael's like, I'm the fool. I made you go through this. I thought you could fix me. And Athena's like, okay, listen, I get it. We can just be celibate and still be married. Absolutely baffled by this woman's denial of the situation. And Michael's like, no, that can't happen actually because I'm seeing someone. Now that Michael has finally accepted that he's out, why would she expect him to force himself to like stay in the closet by still being married to her? Also, she's not being fair to herself because she deserves to be happy with someone who can make her happy. Also, I'd like to point out that earlier in the episode, Athena accidentally let a criminal go because she didn't know that he was a criminal, and then she's chasing to like find him. When she does, she's told by another officer to calm down. I know it's kind of a direct, like, she's like mad because of her situation with Michael, but also, why are you letting that get in the way of your job? What are we doing? And then Abby calls Buck again, because of course she does. She's like, listen, some people just don't want to be saved. And then Buck calls Abby his friend. You do not know this woman, okay? She doesn't know you either. This is weird. And then Carla tries to convince Abby to pursue Buck romantically. Guys, what are we doing? Like, the age gap isn't the problem here. She's like 20 years older than him, which is like fine, whatever. Like, he's an adult. It's the fact that they don't know each other, and the only reason why they're even talking to each other is because Abby was crazy enough to find his number on a call log. And also, that wasn't even the first time that Carla was like, you should pursue Buck, by the way. She did it like another time earlier. Speaking of Abby being older than Buck, Buck asks Abby like how old she is because she's being old by like calling him instead of texting him or something. And like a career politician, Abby ignores the question and then turns it into, do you want to go on a date with me? And Buck, being somewhat sensible but not for the right reasons, is like, listen, I have a problem and I think I'd end up sleeping with you, so I think we should just call each other instead. This episode ends with Athena coming home, and she notices that May is still in her room, so she goes to check on May, and there's a pill bottle on the floor, and May is on the floor unconscious. So now we're on to episode 3, titled Next of Kin. Michael shows up to the hospital with his date, which is a choice, while Athena is also at the hospital and she's serving face. Okay, she looks great in this dire situation, but May eventually wakes up, and Michael goes immediately to being like, oh my god, this is my fault. It must be because I'm gay and this was like a lot for you. I understand the sentiment of wanting to blame yourself for this kind of thing, but it's not your situation. This is your daughter's thing. And May's like, oh what? No, I'm being bullied and I have no friends. This explains like her irrational response to her dad coming out because she doesn't like want to get bullied further. And then finally, we're treated in a chimney storyline. So he's at his apartment fake cooking for his girlfriend. And what I mean by fake cooking is that Bobby was the one actually to make this food, and Timmy takes it and reheats it and pretends that he does it to impress his girlfriend because his girlfriend is an adrenaline junkie, and he also like lies about all the stuff that he does so that he can like sustain this relationship. During dinner, Chimney proposes to her and she's like, well, it's not a yes, but it's not a no either, because they hadn't talked about this next step in their relationship and his girlfriend has commitment issues. And then the next time that they're at the firehouse, Chimney's telling them all this, and Bobby's like, it's probably for the best. Shade thrown. And Chimney obviously gets defensive. And Bobby, this is the funniest thing, Bobby goes, "You're living a lie, man." And Chimney is like, "I feel bad for your wife," which, not the right thing to say to a man who does not have a wife. And then instead of staying at work and doing his job, he like drives off. I don't really understand, but anyways, he gets rear-ended. He also gets a metal bar. He gets rebar through his head. He gets a metal pole going directly through his forehead and like out the back. The 118 shows up on the call and they're like, "Oh my god," because Chimney's lucid. He's not really like feeling any pain. He's just like kind of like confused, and everyone was like, "This is insane." But they get him out and they take him to the hospital where they get the bar out of his head, and then he's put into a medically induced coma. So even though we finally got a Chimney storyline, he's already out of commission. Okay, I didn't write the context for this line, but Hen says this to Buck. She says it's frustrated. She's like, "There's always something you can blow." Anyways, Abby, stop calling this man at work challenge level impossible, and then he picks up. I know I'm blaming Abby for all of this, but also Buck is partially to blame because he keeps picking up. Why does he keep picking up? Weird. We also get a scene of Athena at May's school looking through her yearbook, like faces to the girls that are bullying her daughter. It's not as crazy as it seems, but also it's still really weird. I understand that these girls like drove your daughter to doing this, but also they're teenage girls and you're an adult woman. Bobby shows up to Chim's apartment with some food for Chimney's girlfriend, and he tells her, like, "Hey, you should go see him in the hospital." And she's like, "I don't think I should. If I see him, then I'll have to stay with him, and how long am I supposed to stay with him when I don't want to?" So she essentially breaks up with Chimney without him knowing. But Tatiana is effectively out of the picture now, while Chim is still in a coma. The episode ends with Bobby, Buck, and Hen at the hospital to see Chim, and Bobby says his family's right here. If we think 2 episodes ago, he was like, "This is not a family." Well, it's a family now. Now we're on to episode 4, which is titled Worst Day Ever. This episode opens on a plane crash, and then we go back 8 hours before said plane crash. Bobby is looking at his little book again. Buck really wants to know what's in it, and Hen is like, "No, do not do anything with that book. Stay away from it." And then Buck, because he's so smart, tells Bobby that he peeked inside of the book. He's like, "It's just names and blank spaces. What's up with that?" Bobby gets super mad, and he threatens Buck, and he's like, "Don't ever do that again." So Athena, like the well-adjusted woman that she is stalking her daughter's bully, who, for the record, is 14, and she shows up to this girl's house, and this girl is like throwing a party with her friends, and Athena proceeds to call this girl names. She also said that the neighbors called to complain about the party, even though they didn't do that. She's just lying. After all of this, she arrests the girl for weed possession because she manages to find weed. And then during the plane crash rescue, it's hitting Bobby really hard, especially when he's trying to help a mother and her son out of the airplane. And also, while they're on site, guess what happens? That's right, Abby calls Buck again. Luckily this time it's not for like her reasons, because she's calling to see about a man who was on the plane. He called 911 and left a message to his wife and unborn daughter because he was worried that he wouldn't make it out alive. So she wanted to know if he did make it, and Buck finds out that he did not. Also, while this is going on, Athena is at the airport trying to help out with whatever's going on, and there was this plane that was either supposed to take off or deboard people, but because of the plane crash, they kept everyone on the plane for like 8 hours so they could figure out if there was like foul play involved in the plane crash. The flight's been grounded for hours, and the airline will not let the people off. In the process of Athena trying to get these people off, there is an airline officer on board keeping all the people on because he got a message from the CEO that was like, "Keep these people on." And ironically, Athena calls this man a bootlicker. So pot meet kettle. When Athena gets back to the station after all of that, she's put on desk duty, obviously, for harassing a 14-year-old girl. Also, after the call, when Bobby gets back to his apartment, he kind of like hallucinates his kids, even though there's no one there, and then he starts drinking. Hen and Buck show up the next day because seemingly Bobby didn't show up for work. So they get into his apartment, and then they find him on his bed with alcohol next to him. So they get him out of bed, they throw him in the shower to wake him up. Bobby admits to them that he relapsed after 18 months of being sober. Hen and Buck tell Bobby that he can ask for help sometimes, and then immediately Bobby goes, "Help." This episode ends with Abby dozing off on her couch after the long day that she had. When she wakes up, her mom is not in her bed. She's wandered off somewhere. Episode 5 is titled Points of Origin. This episode starts with Hen and Athena talking to each other. Hen is telling her about Bobby, and she's like, there's no signs of anything, any family in his apartment. And Athena's like, do you want me to do a background check? Because that's like really weird. Hen is like, no, Bobby's the best captain I've ever worked with. If he has some skeletons in his closet, that's fine, whatever, because he's great to work with. Hen also tells Athena that she got an urgent call from her ex in prison because she's up for a parole hearing. Hen has not told her wife about the call. So when Hen goes to visit her ex in prison, she doesn't know it's because Eva wants her to speak at her parole hearing, but that's what Eva tells her. And also, I feel like this is important for me to mention, but remember how I said that Karen and Hen have a son named Denny? Turns out it's Eva's biological son, and his real name is Diesel. Obviously, Hen and Karen don't call him that anymore because, respectfully, that is a dog name. Buck finally gets a text from Abby. It's a picture of her mom's missing poster. Obviously, Buck calls her, Abby breaks down, blah blah blah, and Buck is like, okay, let me help you find your mom, and then after this we can go back to talking on the phone. Next, we get Bobby at confessional, and he tells his priest that he can't let the 118 know that he killed his family. You killed your family and you're still a firefighter? How does that work? We get a nice flashback for context. 5 years prior in Minnesota. So we see Bobby living in an apartment with his wife and 2 kids. Bobby is telling his wife, oh, I need to go out my nightly walk so that my back doesn't start hurting because he had a back injury 5 years before that. He goes out of his apartment. You think he's gonna go on a walk, but oh no. Turns out it's not a walk. He goes to a secret apartment that he has where he goes to get drunk and high. It's also important to note that there is a really crappy space heater in there. He also has a lamp because he doesn't use the utilities in the apartment, probably to keep the rent down, but also this man is probably paying hundreds of dollars for this apartment to fuel his addiction. Bobby accidentally falls asleep, and when he wakes up, he's like, oh god, I gotta get back to my apartment. He leaves in a rush, and because of that, he leaves a jacket on top of the heater. When Bobby gets back, he and his wife get into a fight. His wife is like, go sleep in your drug den tonight. I can forgive you, but not right now. But on his way out, he forgets his keys. I'm assuming they're in the jacket that he left in his drug den. He goes up to the roof of his apartment instead, and then, surprise, the jacket catches on fire. Then the whole apartment goes up, and he tries saving his family, but he can't. And it doesn't help that the apartment, the sprinklers didn't work, and the construction itself was really bad and didn't pass code. So what ended up happening was 148 people died in that fire, including his wife and his children. Let me pull this direct quote of what he tells his priest. I killed them, my own kids, my own family. I murdered them in their sleep, choked them on smoke, and burned their little bodies. Poor Bobby has to deal with this guilt for the rest of his life. And then his priest says to him that he should start being more open with the 118 and that he should share his story with his coworkers. Bobby starts crying and he just says that he misses his family. And I bet you're thinking right now, how is this man not in jail for what he did? Let me tell you, that gets answered in like season 3, I think. By the end of the episode though, Bobby does open himself up to Buck and Hen. They don't know the exact details, but they do know Bobby is willing to be more open with them. Progress. Hen finally tells Karen that Eva is up for parole, and Karen, rightfully, is like, keep her locked up. Keep her away in there. She is not good for this family. Hen is like, well, but I think she's changed. Like, she asked about Denny. And Karen's like, she doesn't gaff about Denny, okay? And then Karen gets kind of defeated, and she's like, but Eva was your first great love, whatever that means. And then while Buck and Abby are looking for her mom, because remember, her mom disappeared, they get on the topic of sex, because of course they do. Buck is there, and Buck finds out that Abby hasn't had sex in over a year, and he's like, in over a year? How is that possible? Okay, dude. While they're looking for her mom, they help out a girl from an electrified pool. Buck is like, whoa, you did so good. Abby goes, yeah, because I feel calm around you. Okay. Eventually, Abby gets a call from Athena because Athena was helping them from her desk duty to see if any hospitals got any like missing persons. Athena calls Abby and is like, hey, this hospital has your mom. So they go to the hospital and Abby's reunited with her mom. Yay, problem solved. Afterwards, Abby tells Buck that they should go back to their phone calls because mistakes will be made. At least she has some sort of self-awareness. Anyways, Buck goes back to work like the next day or whatever, and he's like, guys, I met a woman and her mom, and I didn't sleep with any of them. Despite that progress, at the end of the episode, Buck and Abby end up having phone sex. Yay! Episode 6 is entitled Heartbreaker. Luckily, this episode isn't super plot heavy, so I'll try to get through this in the next one, I think, pretty quickly. But first, I have a scenario for you. So pretend you're a 911 dispatcher. You take a call, and you figure out that this woman is on a medication that could be causing her to have heart attack-like symptoms. And you figure this out while the EMTs are already attending to her. Do you, A, radio into the captain on scene to tell him this vital information, or do you, B, call your situationship's cell phone while he's out on the call and hope and pray that he picks up because he's actively helping the patient? If you picked B, good job, you're Abby Clark. Anyway, Chim returns. He's back, and the 118 give him a cake in the shape of his head with rebar going through it. And then I'd also like to point out that Chim now has a scar on his head. Give me 1 second. Jimmy now has a scar on his forehead. I don't know if this will look good on camera. I just think his scar is really funny because obviously it's makeup. So when he gets like sweaty and stuff, it starts to like rub off and fade away. And I just think that's hilarious. Anyways, everyone encourages Buck to go on a Valentine's date with Abby. He miraculously scores a last-minute reservation at a restaurant. Buck and Bobby have this like really cute little father-son moment where Bobby is like tying Buck's tie. It's cute. It's a fun little moment. And then parallel with this, we get Abby getting ready for the date. She asks her mom, she's like, "What do you think, Mom? How do I look?" Her mom goes, "You don't look like a whore at all." And one could get into explaining how these two scenes kind of like represent misogyny. I'll just say that her mom was really funny for that. They go out on their date. Buck manages to choke on a piece of bread because he's a little idiot. I love him, but he's stupid. Because 911 can't come in time before oxygen stops going to his brain entirely, Abby performs an emergency tracheectomy. So essentially, she saves his life. You're a hero! The episode ends with Bobby and Abby in the hospital to see Buck. Episode 7 is titled Full Moon, parentheses, Creepy AF. You can obviously tell that this episode came out in 2018, but this episode includes a bunch of crazy calls about the full moon making people go crazy. And one of them I have to mention, I don't think that this is possible in any way, shape, or form, but personally that's just me. There's this guy who is clearly not sober by any means. He's literally biting people like a zombie. I think he's like chewing this guy's face off at some point, and they even show a shot from his point of view, and it's all rainbowy and swirly to imply that he is on drugs. And then Athena shoots him like 3 times before he finally collapses. Later in the episode, we find out that he was not on bath salts like Hen predicted. No, he was only drunk. I'm sorry, I don't think alcohol makes you that crazy. Anyways, Buck goes over to Abby's and brings her a bottle of wine to thank her for saving him, and then they finally have sex. Yay! But anyways, Eva calls Hen, and she's like, "I've been on parole for a week. You should come over." And Hen at first is like, "No." And then Hen changes her mind. Big sigh. Hen cheats on Karen with Eva. The episode ends with Hen driving out to the beach, and she's looking out on the shore, looking guilty as hell, because she is, as she's giving a voiceover. Episode 8 is entitled Karma's a Bitch. I should've known better. This episode features a bunch of calls where pieces of shit get their asses handed to them, and by asses handed to them, I mean they die. Because, as you can guess, Karma's a bitch! Bobby walks into the 118, and Jimmy's holding a blood drive, and everyone's giving blood because they're first responders, and that seems really obvious of them to be doing. Chimney peer pressures Bobby into giving his blood because Bobby's being a little baby about it, and he's like, "I don't want to give my blood." Bobby is convinced to give blood, and because it's his first time giving blood, they have to test his blood, and then he gets a call from a doctor saying, "Hey, you need to come in. Your blood's weird." So he's obviously like, "Oh my god, I have cancer." He goes to his priest, and he talks about the call that he had with the doctor, and he shows his little book to his priest, and it turns out that it has 148 spaces in it because Bobby wanted to make up for the lives he lost in the apartment fire, and once he filled out the book, he was going to kill himself. He wanted to do this so he could kind of repent for what he did and be able to see his kids. He's also saying this call from the doctor is like karma from God. He's essentially saying that like he won't be able to live long enough to save 148 people because of this potential diagnosis. And then Bobby goes to the doctor's office with Chimney because Chimney feels guilty about the whole thing, even though it's not his fault if he would have cancer. It would be a good thing, actually, that Chim did this, so then he would know. But anyways, they go to the doctor, and the doctor's like, Bobby, you have crazy special blood. Bobby's blood can help babies with Rhesus disease. The point is, Bobby's blood can save lives of babies. And Chim is like, oh my god, this is great. You can save so many children. And Bobby's like, it's the wrong kid. It's not my kid. I just want to see my kids again. Please give this man therapy. He needs it so bad. And Bobby's like, I made a deal, and once I can pay my debt, I can see my kids again. That's literally all he wants. And he said, God's not punishing me by killing me. God's punishing me by forcing me to stay alive. Anyways, Athena and Michael have decided to put the kids first by staying together. And then in the same breath, Michael wants to bring his partner to introduce him to their kids. Later, their kids tell them to get a divorce because this whole situation is a nightmare. And then we get Hen telling Athena that she messed up big time. And Athena's like, girl, what is wrong with you? Why would you do that? Athena also says she needs to tell Karen because it's the only way that she can fix what she's done, if Karen will let her fix what she's done. Athena goes home and she tells Michael that she's gotten a divorce attorney. She also finally realizes she never regretted marrying him. It's good to see some character growth from Athena. And then she goes to a bar and then she gets hit on by a guy. When Hen gets home, she tells Karen about the thing with Eva, and Karen's like, oh, I know, actually, because Eva is suing for custody of Denny. And she's suing because they have an unstable home. Even though literally it's Eva's, like, Hen is also culpable, let's be real here. But it was like a trap by Eva to get custody of Denny. And then Karen says, you put our family at risk. I hope it was worth it. And then at the end of the episode, Chimney tells Bobby to meet him at the hospital. He meets a family of a baby whose life that Bobby saved with his blood. And Chimney tells him to either throw his book away or get himself a bigger one. Okay, we have 2 episodes to go. This is episode 9, entitled Trapped. This episode opens with my favorite thing in the world, aka a corny Abby voiceover. While the voiceover is like going on, Abby's mom slaps her. Me too, girl. But no, it's because Abby's mom is starting to decline more and more. Hen updates Athena on their family stuff and how Eva is suing for custody. And Athena is like, I'm divorcing Michael. Hen asks if she's seeing anyone yet. Athena gives her a look. And then Hen's like, okay, so spill. And then Athena tells her about the guy at the bar. Abby drives out for a date with Buck. Almost as soon as she gets there, she gets a call about her mom. The date was like a hot air balloon. And Buck is like, but hot air balloon. And Abby was like, but my mom. And Buck is like, yeah, but a hot air balloon. Buck talks to Bobby about how this is the second week in a row that Abby has bailed on Buck because of her mom. Buck is like, maybe this relationship just isn't for me. Bobby claps back with the most obvious advice in the world. He's like, okay, so it's a real relationship. Things happen. Then he says, Abby needs help and you need to be there for her. You have to get through tough times together if you want to stay in this relationship with her, obviously. And then Buck and Abby go on like a more casual date. Abby tries to break up with Buck because she knows that it's impacting him too. But Buck is like, no, don't do that. I can help you through this. So then they stay together. And eventually shows up to Eva's place to confront her and basically says the reason why Eva's doing this is to try and get the 2 of them back together, which is a terrible idea. Hen ends her long spiel to Eva saying, you are incapable of loving anyone but yourself. And then we get to the end of the episode and Abby's mom passes away. Abby's mom died of a pulmonary embolism. The episode opens with her funeral. Buck is there helping Abby get through everything. And then we juxtapose this very serious moment with Bobby taking the most embarrassing photos that you could imagine a 50-year-old man taking in a bathroom at work. And it turns out it's because he's finally decided to get himself back out on the dating scene, so he's making himself a dating profile. And then there's this really weird subplot that I'll just like recap right now. Basically, there's this guy that catfished a bunch of women pretending to be Buck. How did he do that, you may ask? Oh, you know, he did it on MySpace in 2018. And he managed to catfish attractive women, and it's like, I'm sorry, who is using MySpace? Especially conventionally attractive people. Despite that weird thing going on, basically the catfisher died. So the women like show up to meddle with Buck because they're like, how could you have done this to me? When it wasn't him, and everyone doesn't believe Buck, but then eventually they do because they realize, oh no, it was a catfish actually. And then we get Hen worrying about her relationship with Karen because Karen is living with her mom at the moment. So she goes to the grocery store because she knows when Karen shops, so she confronts her in the parking lot and she she tries apologizing and she tries getting Karen to come home, but Karen's like, I cannot do this right now, and then she leaves. And then we see Buck helping Abby so much, it basically seems like he's moved in. Abby tells Buck her mom always wanted to travel, but she was never able to because she had kids. After this, there is a pretty serious motorcycle crash, and it affects Bobby pretty badly. Athena's also there, and she's like, is there anything that I can do to like help you or something? Bobby is like, how about you come somewhere with me? So he takes her to his church. And then after that, Buck sees a suitcase on Abby's bed, and he's like, what's that for? And she says that she's going to Ireland for a while because she feels really lost now that her mom's gone and she doesn't know what to do with her life. Buck is like, well, I'm excited for you as much as I am sad for me. And then he brings her to the airport a little later, and he's like, I'll be here when you get back. Abby just says to take care of himself. They're still technically together. At the end of the episode, Karen comes back home to Hen. Karen's like, don't make me regret this. And Hen is like, I promise I won't. And then Bobby tells Chim that he has a date. As he's leaving, Bobby throws his little book away. So you may be wondering, who's Bobby going out on a date with? We haven't seen him interact with anyone really for the most part. It's Athena! He's going on a date with Athena. That's pretty crazy. Oh my god, I just realized that I forgot to mention that she broke up with that one guy because she didn't want anything serious. Now we get Athena, so that's super cool. There's not really any development at this point, but they're super cute and they get development in season 2, and it's great, and I love them. So that is officially the end of season 1 of 911. I hope you enjoyed this little video. Actually, this video is not little. It's probably going to be pretty long, but if you enjoyed it, like the video, subscribe, comment something, I don't know. I hope to have the rest of these out at some point. I'm not really sure how long that'll take me, but we'll see how that goes. And I know the show might not seem so crazy so far, but trust me, it gets so much crazier. I hope that you stick around for the ride. Thanks for watching.